figure we'll get going. My name is Oliver Seeley. I'll be moderating this discussion. It's called Platforms and Partnerships, which is probably quite a broad couple of terms there to apply to an event like this, the Big Screen Symposium. I'll introduce the panel. Maria Mahony to my left, Head of Programming and Local Content at Lightbox. Very useful person to have on this panel because she's drawn from more than 15 years experience in international domestic broadcasting. And I work with her at TVNZ, where we work on a number of subscription and free-to-air channels, which also has a large history with, long history with MTV and Nickelodeon, spanning all the way back to a number of European markets as well. Is that right?
Yeah, very long time.
Brent Kennedy, to my left, founder of Camaraderie. Camaraderie, basically a company set up, designed to partner content makers with brands.
Right,
yeah.
What we're here for.
Brent brings years of experience in the ad world as well, and I think we'll probably be drawing on some of that, a lot of that knowledge in ad as well. And then at the end, Kefali, our filmmaker, he'll be, I suppose, most of your voice on this panel. Also with a lot of relevant experience actually working with brands and creating the sort of content for brands that you would actually like to watch, which is so nice when it happens that way. So I thought in terms of the agenda and how we approach the session, we'll look at the environment and the market for brand-supported content and content commissioned by brands or by alternative platforms that are beginning to proliferate, such as Lightbox, but also internationally Netflix and Hulu and those sorts of models. As I understand, many of them are on their way to competition. And then we'll talk a little bit about what sort of opportunities that creates for content makers, and how those relationships start in a lot of ways. And then lastly, I'd like to talk about the process, highs and lows, pros and cons of actually working with people who have very specific interests in the outcomes of the work that content creators make in this space. But yeah, I think Brent, you're probably a good place to start. We don't have microphones, so can everyone hear okay? It sounds all right. We'll use our outside voices. What do you think is the attraction to brands in terms of the trend of using content as opposed to explicit advertising to communicate to them?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for that. It's all about conversations these days, storytelling, and those conversations have to start before you see something on the screen and carry on and endure after. And so the days of interrupting, so borrowing interest in someone else's content, are fading. And so brands are looking themselves to adopt a philosophy where they may be publishing their own content. Red Bull, we can go through a lot of examples, Red Bull being a classic example. So it's all about getting participation in the brand, involvement, and having material for discussions. And that's got to flow from obviously the relationship with their audience, which is their customers, through to a final sale. So it's about connecting content that people want to watch, as you said, through to content that drives behavioural change for the brand, that will go and do something because we have an affinity with that brand.
Red Bull's a great example, right? Their approach to content is headstrong to the point where they don't give it away anymore, right?
No, I find it always quite fascinating coming from a TV background where generally the client or the brand always go, how many billboards can we have, how many spots, how many mentions, and then you talk to Red Bull and they would say, we absolutely do not want our brand in there. And from a content perspective, that's amazing, but I've never had anyone doing that. Look until now, and they were really early on pushing that. It was just pushing experience, pushing what the brand stood for, rather than the actual logo of the brand. So.
There's kind of there's the two sort of prongs to this discussion I think today, which is brand commission content and then platform commission content. And I mean, Lightbox, you're coming up to your first month, so all those trials are rolling over.
Yes.
And you'll be excited when everyone just goes, you know what, just keep charging my credit card.
Do you know what? Do you know what I like more than something free? Something that I paid for.
Yes.
That's what we're hoping
That's
for.
right, that's the model.
Yeah, exactly.
When Lightbox launched, there was press releases that said, you know, top-notch international programs available to stream, and also New Zealand content, and it was sort of vague.
Yes. No, it was and it is. What we're doing at the moment, we're focusing on acquisitions only because it sort of is what you do, and also just sort of feeling out the audience. And so we're talking to local studios and distributors. We have signed up some content already and continue to have that conversation. Obviously, from an commissioning point of view, we all know that comes with a different bucket of money. Bring your gold pennies rather than the little copper ones. And something that we're sort of willing to look into, but it's not going to happen sort of in the foreseeable future. A lot of it, obviously, we're not a broadcaster that has access to contestable funding at this stage, so anything that we would do would have to come from our own pockets or some sort of other funding from somewhere. And it's not where we're at the moment. But in saying that, I've already had conversations with producers saying, if we didn't have to worry about the New Zealand Air or food commissioning funding, would you be open to? So of course, open to, yes, but we're not at the stage where we can commission.
Right. But it could be a situation where, say, if a content creator or even a brand came to you and said, we've got a project, this is the outline, and we've got a sponsor lined up who would be interested to pretty much pay for it, would you then take it and put it on the platform?
Yes. Yeah, and then yes, free content. Yes, that sounds amazing.
Would you pay for it?
No. So we would probably we'll definitely do a license, open to license fees.
Yeah.
But that's sort of all of a sudden that's in an achievable bucket versus funding the whole production ourselves. Obviously for us, what we've done up really heavily with is that Lightbox is a non-commercial place, so you don't need to see an advertiser. You pay for the privilege not to be interrupted by ads. So therefore, if something was funded by sponsorship from someone, it needs to be more on the down the line that you were talking about. So it's like for the passion of the story that we're telling, not because we want our brands shown at every month.
Yeah, and there's now content created in the US. We're talking earlier about AAA who are creating content that has affinity with their values. They want to get a message out there, a public relations message. So they commission a comedy show, Farmed and Dangerous. So they get out Farmed, which is all about cows exploding because they eat the wrong things. But so it's a more a wacky comedy series. And then they're leveraging that in store activity, but on the channel Hulu itself, it's very subtle in terms of where it's come from. And it's rated 4 out of 5 stars, etc. It's on the front page, so it's just another comedy option, which is within the Hulu set. So,
the thing is that people love watching great TV and great shows and great movies. So I think they're not going to watch something because it was sponsored by a brand. If it's a good story, it's a good story.
That's right. Well, we know the story where the soap opera came from.
I'm assuming that's soap powder.
So yeah, soap operas came out of soap powder. So in terms of that was some ad man's idea to get people thinking about a product, and that's how the soap opera was created.
And it would be, and as a content creator as well, there's a lot of pluses, I suppose, to making something when you're making something which isn't about its performance, So when you're making stuff for free-to-air television or a film, I suppose, as well, anything that's going to go to general release where you need either advertisers to then look at it and then advertise around it, or you need people to buy tickets to go see a big film, that can change, I guess, how you make that content. Whereas when you're making something in which the distribution is not a concern of the content maker, is that free, I suppose, in some ways, John?
I think so. I think, and I guess the traditional model for how I've typically worked as a director making things for other people is that there's that process of a brand goes to agency, write a script, that then go pitch it out to production companies, and then myself as a director with the production company would then make an ad for that brand. And then I think what's interesting in some of these other things that are starting to happen where you're making films or content, as one likes to call it, more directly with brands, is that people are more coming to you as a filmmaker for your voice and your style of communication. And I think as opposed to being a filmmaker that has to bend to what the brand wants to do, like you would in a TV commercial, to stay within how the market sees them. They're more, I guess, being into the way that you work and wanting to see, I guess, that out there, that story you want to tell that's sponsored by them. So I think it's great for filmmakers because there's now, there's becoming these other avenues that we can work in, and other ways for things we want to get made.
Joel is one half of Special Problems up until a couple of years ago when you guys stopped working together. The Special Problems, you made the film for Lexus. Echoes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That in itself is interesting. That was a short film.
Yes.
And tell us about that situation. How does that come about?
Quite a while ago, BMW did a series of short films that I think quite a few people are familiar with, where they commissioned really big A-list directors with a lot of money to make films for BMW. And then Lexus and the Weinstein Company a couple of years ago then did something similar, but instead of going after big directors, they went after new, young directors. And so they got 5 directors from 5 different parts of the world to all make, each of us to make a film. And so making that film sat somewhere between, I guess, making something that was our own film that we wanted to make, and then making something that was had a brief. Like there was a small brief that, their brief was life is amazing. So there was something to respond to, but the scope and amount of freedom for us to make what we wanted to make was much greater than what you'd be used to for a car company. Like there was no requirement to put a car in the film. The only kind of Lexus branding that was in there was a logo at the start that was Lexus Short Films. And again, I guess even the fact that it's not Lexus, it's Lexus Short Films is, I guess brands moving into that kind of space as well, where they're publishers.
Brand as a company provider.
Yeah.
And could you have had a car that wasn't a Lexus in the film?
No, if a car was to be in film, it had to be Lexus. Right. Everyone drove Lexus.
Yeah. It's just a town full of Lexus owners.
But I mean, that experience as well was eye-opening to see what it's like when when you're making something for a TV commercial. That any kind of conferencing you have with a brand, you're often there to appease what they want. Whereas in that process, they were there to appease us. Like there was very much like, how would you like the film to go? What do you think is the best outcome?
They wanted a quality piece of film. Totally was out. Can I go back? How were you even selected as the filmmaker? As the one of 5, was it that year?
Yeah. So there was a producer from the Weinstein Company who, I guess, just scouted and heard through a friend of his down here. It was that organic word of mouth that they were looking for someone from the Australasia, Asia Pacific region, and we were one of several that they looked into. And we did have to pitch for it, like most things. We had to write treatment, and then they went for us.
The film is online, and check it out on YouTube if you guys want to watch it afterwards. Echoes. Sergio does, Lexus will come up. Yeah. And how did Lexus then leverage this great piece of content that they've made?
So my experience with that as well was that they had all the ingredients. They had a great brand. They had good filmmakers, and they had a great production company with the Weinstein Company. They didn't I think they hadn't planned a pipeline to export that out of. That there wasn't. They just their kind of process was, we'll have our own website and we'll put it on YouTube, and then there we go. Whereas they've just done a second round of them, and they've partnered with Vimeo, and I think something like that is a much better strategy. Whereas Vimeo is not as big as YouTube, but has its audiences more tight knit, and it's more filmmaker centric, and people who I think are on Vimeo consume content a lot more than your average YouTube user. And so by them partnering with someone like Vimeo, I think now that will help those films be seen better. I think ultimately it was an exercise in Lexus and Weinstein Company shaking hands with each other, and what they got out of that was parties that can't.
Well, because I saw that was another part of this year's run. As I saw they're having screenings in a slew of major and minor film festivals.
Yeah.
And did they do that? Did they do that in your year?
Yeah, they presented them at Cannes, outside of Cannes, so like an isolated event along just before the film festival. So everyone was there for the film festival.
So, Joel raises the big issue. It's you can make content, but it's got to be seen. YouTube has basically their top 100 channels on YouTube, and their viewership has grown 80% in the last year. 80% in the last year. And you will all know from your own Facebook feeds, in terms of Facebook moving into video, they're now at 1 billion views a day in terms of video content, and it's pre-roll 65% is on mobile devices. So any kid can make content, and that's why brands are rushing to find people that can make content for people who want to watch and share is the other component.
I want to show you guys this is a blog I follow called Contently, and this was an article a little while ago, about a month or two ago, looking at some of the best branded content of 2014 so far. Hootsuite have made a few different episodes, a minute and a half, 2 minutes sort of spoof of Game of Thrones, which is Game of Social Thrones, which has been doing quite well. But there's a couple of examples in here which I think are quite interesting. Net-a-Porter are actually printing a physical magazine, and I guess we say content is a catch term that I'm guilty of using a lot, and I don't mean to discount the craft of filmmaking by calling it content, but I think there are a lot of opportunities arising for storytellers, kind of regardless of the disciplines, I suppose. And a magazine's, slightly different. It's funny. The Lego Movie. I mean, that's an interesting example of branded content. I was reading a little bit of that Fast Company article that they reference in it, and it was quite interesting because the filmmakers initially came to Lego and were like, we think you could make a film around Lego and that could be a great film. And then and Lego went, okay, that's good, you're thinking that, but that's our brand and we need to make lots of money from that, and we can't go screwing it up. And the actual process of making it was quite interesting. You guys seen the Lego movie?
Yeah. I didn't want to. But when I did, it was actually a roaring endorsement of it was much better than I feared. But it was actually, I was happy to watch it, but I wouldn't have gone had I not gone. But,
It cost 60 million to make. It's made over $500 million on the box office so far. It's increased Lego sales by 11%. it made Lego for the first time, and they were nearly bankrupt about 10 years ago. It made the #1 toy manufacturer in the world, overtook Mattel. Now that's good content.
The thing I found interesting about the film as well is prior to watching it, I thought it was going to be something like a TV series like Ninjago, where it just looks like an advertisement, whereas it felt more like it was a film that was made out of Lego as opposed to a film that was made by Lego. And I thought that was, it was actually a great script.
And they took some bold moves, featuring a used plaster amongst Lego, and old broken bits of Lego. Brands wouldn't have done that a while back.
Just the fact that they call it the Lego movie and it's just advertised it. Like the movie that's a brand name, which is amazing, but it's just they just want this and it just works.
If you had to cast your Oscar vote between Frozen and the Lego movie? Yeah.
I'd lean Lego.
Lego? Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah. Kids love Frozen.
Yes. So I just come from home where we had an argument with my 2-year-old who, for the 3rd time this week, wanted to wear a Frozen dress. And is now so tatty, it's just hanging in strings. It's the most beautiful thing to ever own.
A couple of other examples. Budweiser Puppy Love. Oscar Mayer's Wake Up and Smell the Bacon app. There's an app which comes with a dongle, which it's actually an alarm, and the little dongle excretes the smell of bacon when it's time to wake up. Warby Parker they make eyeglasses, and their annual report was just an amazing exercise in storytelling, which anyone can go on and see using video and graphics and all sorts of different things. And GoPro's YouTube page, I think they're listed in the top 80 channels, which, as you see, have increased their viewership 80+. And a number of other examples. There's the Chipotle Farm to Dangerous example. Twixt, Red Bull again. They're a content behemoth. I remember with Red Bull, for example, when we were working on TVNTU, the youth channel, we went to Red Bull to talk about potentially, like whether or not they'd be interested in screening some of their content, basically giving us free content to screen on the channel. And they were like, and they did not approach that meeting at all. They literally walked into that meeting with the view that they were going to make a killer sale to a youth network, and were like, these are our rates, and this is what we'd sell for.
When's right?
That was about 5 times what we were prepared to pay.
Because also we were prepared to give them airtime.
Yeah.
As our gift
Yeah.
to them.
And they were like, well, we don't want that.
Well, they understand the power of discovery, of people finding things, versus you two who understand the power of shoving it on your phone. But and that was the problem with their execution. So there's the whole. If you're into extreme sports, you've got one relationship there with Red Bull, and you want to watch people jump from the edge of the top of the world, the stratosphere. Down, you can watch that. But also, if you're into music or DJ music, you've got a whole relationship there with Red Bull that a lot of people outside of that world wouldn't even know it exists. And if you go, look at the Red Bull Academy, they educate people on the heritage of music, and so this is not content that's created on the fly. This is this is founded on a strategy and a lot of time and research and writing to get to the quality that works.
I know Nick Dwyer, record producer, TV, radio personality. He's moved to Japan. One of the projects he's doing over there, he's got a long history with Red Bull, working on Red Bull music programs for years all over the world. They've commissioned him to make a documentary about record producers who have been directly influenced by the music in video games. And that's a documentary he's making, which I think is cool. It'll probably be a really fascinating documentary,
it's out now, it's out in the stages. It's just started releasing last week.
Ah, is it
Yeah,
an episode?
I was just that's what I was just about to say was that, and what I think is interesting for filmmakers is with, I guess, the ability to share things online and things like this, that Red Bull is that there's the ability to tell stories that are less populist and broad, and that there are people commissioning things that are very specific. And so I think that's great as someone wanting to tell stories, that you're able to make things that are true to you, and that people are, I guess, going to start connecting storytellers that are going to tell very specific stories with very specific audiences as well. I think that is an interesting area that hopefully opens up more as well.
It's probably worth talking a bit more about opportunities, right? And the sorts of like how these relationships happen. It's so frustrating to hear you didn't apply for the Lexus thing and that you just got like shoulder tapped, and asked to put a treatment together. Brent, Camaraderie, how does that work specifically? Is there anyone else doing what Camaraderie does in New Zealand?
Not I'm aware of it at the moment. We see ourselves as sort of the Tinder for content creators.
Do people
hopefully we've all good experiences.
Do people line up? You swipe the people with bad faces to the left,
exactly.
the pretty ones to the right. Yeah.
It's a push-pull situation. You need to find behind the brands. Brands are people in the end. You've got to find the clients, the people that really want to do and aspire to do things that are going to be done well, rather than just turn up and put another ad in the Herald or something. And then you've got to find content creators that are open to this new form of opportunity. So, and then matching. But, at the end of the day, it takes someone with some drive, some passion, who sees an opportunity and wants to run with it. And we've said it, and we didn't. As you said, I was in the ad world for a number of years in Japan and Australia and here, and I actually came back and took a year off and went back to school and went to film and TV here and because of the ad world is deconstructing in terms of it's built on an industrial platform that's no longer applies. So I was looking to do I've always been passionate about film and TV, so what to do next. And we partnered up with the guys at Images and Sound, who are one of the sponsors, but also one of the leading post-production houses. And they were finding, it started with a conversation that linear process of discovering about a project once it hits post-production doesn't apply anymore either. So the conversations have to be had earlier, and you need everyone at the table to get the maximum value out of a project.
So are you like door knocking at agencies and brands, basically saying, look, have you been thinking about some type of long form content, tell a deeper story or something like that? Or
yeah, anything new. If you've done a startup, so the first phase is the education process and talking to people and showing them, because a lot of people aren't aware of what's going on, and on both sides. Yes, and then talking to brands. Now they're doing that. They're starting, but they don't know how to do it at the moment. That's why we created it, because there was no conduit. Because if you go to an ad agency, you'll end up with that structure of going through account management to a team, a writing, under a team. So they've already come. The structure is determining what the output might be. There's exceptions, yeah. You guys, and others are understanding that. So we needed to break down the model. We're not a production house, so we're neutral. So and our interest is in creating great content, but also making sure it gets seen. And so they have to be, the conversations have to be parallel. Can't wait until it's done and then say, well, will you sponsor this? Right. How many people walked in with content and said, we've got a great idea, will you sponsor it? And the response is, if only you'd seen me 6 months ago, or if only you'd seen me 12 months ago. Brands are working on a plan so it has to evolve together.
Mm. And from the content creator side, do you have content creators coming to you and are they sort of going, do content creators come to you and go, what do people want? Or do content creators come to you and say, I've got an idea for a long form documentary about the history of money. we find a home for that.
Well, we're starting up. The issue is that what the opportunity is also that some content creators have pitched their ideas to me, and within the integrity of what they want to do, I can see opportunities that brands would want to be involved in, that the content creator, because they come from a different world or a different perspective, haven't realised that they exist. So it might be totally different things, because audiences aren't just people that, there's a multitude of audiences, and with a brand there's a multitude of audiences. There's the people that buy the products, but there's also the people that work for the company, the people that have shares in the company, their partners. So there's all those nuances that need to be. So if you can go to a brand and say, well, this is how it could roll out, this is how you can connect with all these different audiences, and you'll get X amount of value rather than a frequency of one, basically by someone watching something. It's got to be part of the whole plan to get the value.
Does it feel like you're working in the ad world or the production world?
It doesn't feel like the ad world, it's great. Otherwise I'd be, I think the exciting part is that the film and television world and the people that attend this conference come from a world where collaboration is part of the way we work. Whereas rather than working for an institution or a company, we're used to teaming up and becoming big or going small. And to me, that is an asset rather than a threat. So there's the opportunities out there in terms of being able to scale up, scale down, bring in different talent. It's all about, you want to be a hybrid these days. You don't want to be one thing. No one wants to be one thing anymore. Because if you're one thing, you might wake up tomorrow and there's an app that can do that.
I don't know if I said at the beginning, but there will be time at the end of this for questions. But if anyone's got a burning question or feels like you want to get more, just yell out.
Right. Thanks for talking today. Just listening to what we were talking about and what you've been presenting so far, the brands that seem to be involved in this so far have a retail focus and are selling things. And they seem like the sort of companies that already have traditional marketing strategies in place that can afford to play in this new space. Does this strategy work for companies that are selling services or things that are not corporeal, or people who are new to this space and might be looking at this as an alternative strategy to what would have been a traditional marketing strategy?
I can listen to that voice all day.
With my car now, you can rate
Brent?
You have to listen to mine now? I remember I spoke at a conference on outdoor many years ago in India, and to answer your question, and there was a whole, in India, of course, education is, is number one, and everyone, you can teach something. And I turned up, and they had the press there, and literally there were hundreds of press, just to see me, which was a bit overwhelming. Because there's a lot of people in there, and there's a lot of publications, a lot of people asking questions. And I was there because I was asked to talk about that they had the middle class, and all of a sudden shopping malls were all going to be being dropped from the skies in India, right? And so they had no experience in terms of shopper marketing, but also the whole retail experience and billboards and merchandising. Just overnight, before it was just the local store, overnight they had to adjust to that. And so that was my purpose for being there. And so into this press conference, and this woman asked me, so you're thinking of the strategies I was outlining, so can this apply to condoms? And she was from the Indian Medical Journal, basically. So what I'm trying to make the point is that yes, it can, because if you apply those principles and you apply that thought process from the start, then the opportunities will open up. And we are working with some clients already who have. There's a lot of clients who have, as you say, are in the service industry, so they haven't got anything tangible they can put on the table. They need to tell a story, and rather than the boring corporate video, the chairman sitting at the desk and telling you how many employees you've got, or here's my truck, or here's my... You can engage people. People's expectation for content is changing. They want to be entertained and informed. So, yeah, the same principles apply.
Related to that, do you think that the metrics or the ROI demonstrating that to the client, the tools for doing so are different from before, or they need to be evolved in any way? So if you have a story or content which doesn't really mention the brand, but associates an experience, how do you show the client, okay, here's what you get from this?
You need, number one, there are literally, I know you've seen their website that lists all the new websites that are coming up every second, or all the Twitter feeds, etc. There are billions of sites, websites out there, and everyone's trying to do e-commerce and everyone's trying to have a presence there. But if you don't engage people, so you need, it's one part of, it's not everything, it's one part of the arsenal to engage people. And, you need, if you want to take a leadership in any field, then you need to educate people and be seen as the people that know what they're talking about. So it's the environment you put all this the film, the content around, that it has to fit into that. So the interaction, the transaction might not happen off the content, but you do that within that environment.
I got something that could be an interesting example actually to show. This was a film made for Nokia about 3 years ago that I've been looking at recently as a reference for something else. But which is but it's a I'll play it down to you. It's only 3 minutes long. Great example.
Hong Kong's a really intense city. It's a city that never sleeps. Hong Kong Honey is really an organisation. It's not a company and it's not a money-making project. It's really about connecting local people with local beekeepers and supplying them with local honey. People actually think bees are naturally aggressive and likely to sting. I discovered that they're actually really quite friendly and they're only likely to sting if you agitate them in any way or cause any threat to them. There's not really that many green spaces within the city, and so it was always going to be a challenge to see if bees could actually survive and harvest honey in the city. People are very detached from where their food actually comes from. Food, or the origins of food, have kind of become a mystery now. Bees actually help pollinate roughly 1/3 of our food. Without them, we'd be in big trouble. We'd have to do hand pollination. I check on the bees and open the hives about once a week. When I'm working with the bees, I move very slowly. I'm really relaxed, so everything's really calm. It's almost zen-like. I got this email from this young woman, and her elderly mother was actually interested in keeping bees on her rooftop. Her mother grew up in the really rural part of China, and her father was actually a beekeeper. So she has this natural connection to nature and also to bees. We moved the beehive to a roof. And it makes me happy to think that she could reminisce and think about her childhood when she grew up on the farm. My name's Michael Leung. I live in Yanwatei in Hong Kong, and I'm a product designer and beekeeper.
So I sort of watch that and I kind of go, bravo, Nokia, you know, it's a really nice story. I kind of watched that, I sort of went, I could watch that. I'd watch 10 more little stories like that and, you know, and walk away kind of feeling like, I'm happy Nokia made that possible for me, you know. But in answer to your question, I feel like Nokia didn't do that. You know, I looked into it, they only did one or two other films, only one other that I could find. It wasn't nearly as good as that. But I feel like when I look at that and I kind of go, well, I wish I could have made that. I feel like I could have made that very reasonably priced. Exactly the sort of work that I love. I wish I had taken that idea to Nokia. It probably didn't work like that in that instance. In that instance, Nokia was probably going, we want to tell success stories, so we're going to commission X number of stories. They'll have a budget of this much, and then each of those stories will sit as part of a broad marketing campaign, which is going to cost us 10 times what we're going to pay the budget of actually making that. So following that would probably be billboards. There would be actual videos of the phone showing how the phone actually redefines success, you know, as far as Nokia is concerned and stuff like that. So it is hard, yeah. A lot of the content opportunities, they're part of bigger messaging and they need to fit into campaigns when they're coming from a lot of the big brands, which we talk about and so often dominate the examples and discussions like this. But I mean, I work for a company, Augusto, which is primarily a content company, content agency, making all the bits in between a lot of the stuff that agencies do and that marketers do for themselves. Augusto hates defining itself and what it does, but we're noticing more and more there's a number of different companies popping up left, right and centre who we're directly competing with, just locally here in Auckland. And it is definitely a growing space, and it's not, but we have a production company mentality to how we approach the making of content, and that we need to have storytelling and craft at the basis of everything that we do. So we're constantly engaging different directors, different writers. We bring people in depending on what's actually needed. I mean, I think that would be the example of the sort of smaller, macro level stuff that's going on. That's your question. Yeah.
Just thinking, is it possible to use the native advertising to be the buzzword at the moment? Basically means you write this amazing article, it's really interesting, it's actually an advert no one knows, apparently no one cares. Can you do the same thing for moving image? Could you create a film that was a native advertising film? You make a great film, it just happened to be an advert for a brand that no one even knew, and as a filmmaker then you get to make a great film. Is it possible to pitch content? Now that's sponsored content, that's different. I'm saying you make something which just happens to be about a bank, and BNZ pay for it. But it's a hilarious comedy about bank. Everyone's really happy because they love the bank comedy, and BNZ are happy as well. Is there something like that?
Adidas commissioned the goal, which were around the World Cup, which was a story about passion for football, etc. That was, other than the end credits, you wouldn't know. It was funded largely by them. So it can be done. I think the key thing is you've got to remain authentic.
What was the example? Was it Heineken was doing a documentary on the history of beer or something?
Yeah, like on Hulu now, you can go. If you go to the documentaries page, there's amongst the documentaries the story of Heineken, which is a 90-minute story of Heineken. Now, people aren't here, some people like beer, so around 8 o'clock tonight, I think. And so some people are interested in Heineken. They can see it. It's, the story of Heineken. They've still got to tell the story in an engaging way that it's going to make them watch it for 90 minutes, etc. So I think we are. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you think almost maybe on a really big Mathematic Scale, the Lego movie, is that?
Well, I was going to say Lego now. Lego Movie.
It's a great story that is made out of Lego.
Everyone wants to spend money on negative advertising for marketing. I mean, that's like that's what it is. Ooh, negative advertising. Well, why not just go, hey, this is negative advertising, happens to be
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
like
I mean, to
that's
some
a way of
extent,
selling it into a client. Possibly.
Well, I mean, Maria, Lightbox. I mean, I think I said to you before. I mean, like, would there be a situation whereby Lightbox would take it? I mean, what's your, like, where does, because Lightbox is purely an entertainment portal, right? So all of the content that exists on Lightbox has to be there because people want to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you, as the person who purchases content, objectively look at something that you know Heineken or a bank or someone else that have funded from the top up with some minute agenda?
At the end of the day, if it's a good story,
Yeah.
then yes. But if it's happens to be about banking, every bank is the ANZ bank, they have their little ANZ card that they carry on around in the front of the pocket or the wallet at all times, then no, you know, like then it becomes an editorial. But something that's great content that just happens to be been bankrolled by a company.
Film about bank robbery, there's lots of those.
Pardon?
There's brilliant films about bank robbery. People love watching those.
Exactly.
No,
So,
there's always going to be an
yeah,
idea.
no, exactly. So, I mean, to your point, though, yes, if the show or movie is good,
Yeah.
then yes.
It's a bit of a difference though with the Lego movie. It was built on a campaign though that with Lego products already tied in with movies for a very long time, and then someone said let's push this into irreverence and create our own genre and feel of values around what we have been doing previously. So taking a film that you want to make about banks without that association perhaps might be harder.
But it's more, so that's more sort of, I guess, what does the bank get out of it? Do they get the investment back?
Yeah, and will audiences connect with
Yeah.
what they had been saying previously?
And that's tough, and that goes back to what you were saying, which is, is this a space that smaller brands can be in? It's probably not. It is a big brand space because that sort of investment, they'll never be able to look at it and directly relate it to cash registers ticking over the way you can with a 30-second ad, which says buy this product or use our bank or that sort of stuff.
Then it's more when
People
you
are
have
stopping
to-
watching 30-second ads.
Yeah.
That's the thing, people are stopping watching them. So, Morton Spurlock, who supersized me, etc., said, can you tell me the difference between 20th Century Fox making a piece of content, a movie, and Pepsi? Because they're both publicly listed corporations on the stock exchange. And actually, who owns 20th Century Fox? Isn't it Rupert? Maybe I'm better off with the soda guys. So, all bets are off. And I think it's a way of working, a way of thinking.
Could I extend that from the whole panel? And a lot of the focus for producers this year is co-production, especially in the scripted drama space. Something that I think we're all experiencing over the last 2 or 3 years is with the dramatic drop in licensing fees. If we had this discussion 3 years ago, the BBC had a very particular position on it. And that position's changed for more broadcasters as co-production requires a lot of parties to be involved because one broadcaster can't go the left. And I guess my question is to Maria, but to the whole panel in terms of your experiences, the level at which you make that decision about whether you will take some content because it's got product placement or some level of sponsorship or funding. Do you have rules? Is there a very prescriptive process that you as a broadcaster go through in the same way that the BBC do, which is softening, of course? It's softening all around the world. And could we have a discussion around that, please? Because many people in the room are asking that question as they start to fund some of these co-productions and are talking to particular broadcasters around the world.
Do you mean like internal rules, like their priorities, or do you mean like actual industry regulation that they have to apply?
Sometimes they're industry related in a particular environment. Some they're just internal, that they've chosen a particular path because they don't want to piss off their audience. And I just wondered what your experience is, how that's evolved over the last year.
I mean, Maria? Given that, I suppose, like you said, Lightbox is purely in an acquisition phase at the moment and not in a commissioning phase, but perhaps speak from your knowledge of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, also going back from when I used to work for a preschool channel where we were definitely completely ad-free, and we definitely had some internal thoughts and principles around, can we work with a brand? When does working together with a brand become an advert? And it kind of, we almost have to go brand by brand. Like, this brand can never be seen on our channel, but this, if this specific type of charity or something that's actually is good, then maybe. So it it wasn't a rule like we will never, but it gets really tricky because we didn't, our point was we were a non-advertising place for preschoolers. Therefore, you have to be really careful to protect your brand, really. Because obviously, I think things have moved a long way, just even in the last few years, as you say, from the first block, the block that came out, was that 4 years ago? And also the Master Chefs, and you can see every year the branding gets a little bit more subtle or less in your face. And it's the brands that are realizing that it's not the amount of times, it's how the brand is being used within the show. Because I think viewers they don't mind seeing product placement. They're actually kind of expecting it. So if you're going to drive a car, you might as well drive the car that pays for the production. All those things, but do it in a way that doesn't interrupt the story. It just it enhances it and it makes it possible. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, from our perspective, once again, we're at the moment we're in an ad-free zone, and so if we're not against a brand appearing in content, it's a natural part of life. It'd be weird filming anything which didn't have any brands whatsoever in it. It's just more, it has to be part of the story rather than when it becomes excessive. Once you start noticing a brand in a piece of content, then it got too far.
It's like in Blade Runner, Blade Runner is that great scene where it spans across the futuristic city and there's just this Coke billboard attached to a blimp flying across it.
Yeah.
Coke didn't pay for that. They didn't. And it was.
So just to extend a little bit also what you were saying, Brent, and the Lego movie and everything, one of the biggest brands obviously in Hollywood is probably Marvel, and that drives a lot of stories, and it's not necessarily
and a lot of status.
Yeah, exactly. And since Disney, franchises were always a giant part of storytelling, and you see Lord of the Rings, Star Wars selling all the plastic figurine. Sony has its own studio. But I guess my main question is, with brand-related content, how edgy can it be? Is there a dumbing down of content inside that? Because there's stories that need to be told from documentary side of the world, of the underprivileged or whatever, that don't get told through.
I think
these kind of things.
I think it depends on. Well, I think again will be case by case depending on who the brand is and where it's going out as well. Because I think from my experience in making things with brands, there's Special Problems made a TV series for Smirnoff, which there was limitations around what we could do with showing alcohol and behaviour on TV. But other than that, it was pretty. We were allowed to do whatever we wanted within the nature of the show. Again, the Lexus film, they wanted those to have a certain rating, so there was limitations. We had a clean edit and swearing edit. There's also Lexus. It was going to be shown a lot in Singapore, so there was limitations around what we could show with nudity, given the strong Muslim community there. So, I think, and then there's places like Vice and Adult Swim, who are very edgy channels that a lot of the stuff is funded by brands. Creators Project is a collaboration between Intel and Vice magazine, and I've had limited dealings with them, but most of that is more, if you've got something to make it, and it's brought to you by Intel. Again, Adult Swim do it's music, but they do a singles series every year where there's 10 artists release singles. There doesn't seem to be any limitations to what they do, and it's always sponsored by a particular brand as well.
I guess it goes back to who is it for and where it's going to go.
And
like you need to, so I say, I don't believe that we should be dumbing down the stories that we want to tell, because that's ruins it.
the viewers.
But you need to speak, you need to know who you're speaking to and speak in a way that they can understand it. And that's appropriate for them as well.
Did Lexus have a idea of what their hoped for audience was before you did they communicate that to you before you started making the film?
They didn't have no, they didn't have.
Like, was it a move for them to try and talk to a new audience that they don't, that will buy Lexuses in 5 years' time? Or?
No, and the thing that was interesting with that as well is all our dealings were with the Weinstein Company, so it was very much an initiative from them that was sponsored by Lexus. So it was more what they were trying to do with the films as opposed to what Lexus were doing. And I think, I think maybe that's where they fell over a little bit. And then what they did with them online is there was more this idea that a great film company will make films, will put them online, people will watch them, whereas they weren't speaking to a specific audience. And so I think they didn't get, I don't think they got watched in the way that they should have got watched.
But they still did it again the following year.
They did. And then I think by learning from the previous year and partnering with Vimeo this year, they've realised that you need someone in that space as well that is going to make people watch it.
So just leading on from that, I was just wondering, using the example of Intel and their Inside Social Film series, where do you think New Zealand might be? Because that series is quite clearly product placement, and they, in my opinion, do it very well. But they also engage their audience because it's a social film that the audience participates in the generation of the content. So where do you think, in your experience, New Zealand is at with it? I think there are a few examples, but...
I mean, can I even ask a more direct question? I mean, like, how many kind of large-scale content kind of led campaigns would you expect to see come out of the New Zealand market in the space of a year?
That is a Wikipedia question. I think the opportunity is where it's not defined because you're competing versus a game, an event. Everything. The issue here is that everything is measurable more than anything. Anything can be directly discrete. I can have a conversation with you. I can create. Talking to a client, we're creating a piece of content for 5 people. But their business, they identify what the revenue of those 5 people might be, and they want to go offshore, and they know who they want to go to, so they need to tell their story and have it in a way that engages that audience. So for them, the investment is worth that for the next couple of years on identifying those people. So I think I've tried to do in my career Trojan horses. So surprise people, get engaged people, do the unexpected. So if you're a boring vodka brand, how are you going to get at the right parties? You're not just going to knock on the door and say, "Can I come in?" You've got to. It's the discovery thing. You've got to talk to the right people at the right time, and they go, "Okay, I like." And there's a truism, whether it's a film, whether it's an ad, whether it's a book. If it's a good idea, people will like it. People will respond to it. So it's knowing what are the good ideas, and that's the magic. We all don't always get it right. So if it's something compelling that I want to watch, and these days I want to share, talk about, then whether it's something made for $3,000 or something that's made for 60 million, the same principle applies.
Can I ask a question? Are consumers are the audiences trending towards wanting less of this or wanting more of it? Because I love Lightbox. I've signed up to it, and it's completely ad-free. Even Sky TV, when you're paying for content that is supposedly ad-free, you click on a movie channel and it's the break between the movies, and it's TNF for other movies and commercial products. So there is actually no ad-free zone in the broadcast sphere in New Zealand. Like, you know, even Australia's got ABC and SBS, which is either low ad or no ad. And so, you know, I think people will drift to Lightbox because they can suddenly go, oh my goodness, I just watched 2 episodes of Downton Abbey and I've still got time to watch 2 more.
40 minutes.
Yes, so the one that you've got that program, I'm really interested in this whole idea of native advertising, because like the trend in the States is that people are putting articles in the New York Times and you think it's like, here's a big report on how avocados are healthy for you, but it's actually being paid for by the Avocado Board of the United States of America. And so the notion that you'll have a feature film that says, I don't know, you've got to do this social behaviour and buy this hand cream and it'll change your life.
I mean, there's a couple of, there's a couple of different things you've brought up there, and I mean, native advertising inside of journalism is different because how you perceive the journalism is largely framed by the journalistic integrity of the company, of the writer and the publisher bringing it to you. With entertainment though, it's a bit different because it's a personal thing for the viewer who sits there and goes, am I entertained? Am I enjoying this experience? And for some people, that may be marred by the fact that it's clear or they know that there is an advertiser making this experience possible or shaping it in some way, or a brand. But for a lot of people, they might not. And one thing I do want to touch on before we go, the Katy Perry video, which you recently did, Joel.
Yes.
There's a product placement in that, which, having watched the video, I didn't realise until you mentioned it to me. And tell us about that.
So that came up, I guess, when the music video happened through the traditional route where I pitched the record label, you know, asked for treatment submissions, wrote an idea, they liked it, approved it. They couldn't, crazily enough, afford the idea, even though they've got one of the biggest pop stars in the world. But they also, at the same time, I think, can leverage that and then get brands to pay for their music videos. And so essentially Nokia were given 30 seconds of screen time within the video and 3 seconds of logo time, and then behind the scenes featurette for paying for a little over half of the, I don't know the actual budget, but I think they pay for a little over half of the video. It wouldn't surprise me if they actually pay for all of it. Yeah, and so I think there's potential for those record labels to actually be making money off their music videos before they've even released them by getting them paid for by brands.
Is this literally, does it start, is there anything in the first minute and a half?
No, it's right in the last minute, I think.
I've chosen the best possible quality in which to your craft here. It's maybe actually, but I'm beyond that. Just quickly. And that was the whole play.
And it was, that was a challenge because there was that kind of thing that we had an idea that was finished and we were like, oh, by the way, you need to get this fine from this video. Oh, right, so how do we do that, like say, with integrity? So, and part of me thought it was like, well, just have the viewers compete with it as well and be unashamed and be like, here I am using a phone. And that was kind of what I tried to do, was just actually go, here's Katy Perry holding a phone. That is paying for this video. But I managed to do it, I guess. And then you use it where it's like, where will the phone actually be in this video? And it's going to be some kids floating with stuff out of their pockets.
As a director, do you, when you get these acts like that, are you like, yeah, of course, because I want to work with you guys, I'll find a way to put the phone in, or are you quite, you sort of sit there and go, not so keen, guys, how can we make this a bit easier for us and keep the integrity of the video?
I think in that situation, we were already quite far down the path of the video being made, that, or in pre-production, that's kind of, it was sort of given to me as not really like, oh, would you like to put the phone in the video? It's like, put the phone in the video. and the guy and the commissioner from the, you know, like everyone who's making the video wants to make the best video. So the discussion was not like, hey, from label was not, hey, put this phone in and we don't care where. It was like, what's the best way that we, you know, we need the money from the guys to make this video. What's the best way we can put this phone in the video? Can you give us some brain time to, you know, sneak your phone in there?
How did it get so far down the track without anybody knowing that was coming from?
I think because they would. I think it was because the budget was slowly ballooning and they were needing to. It was. I think there was.
Was it the record company kind of going, who cares, we'll get some product placement? We'll just keep saying yes to the filmmaking?
Maybe, and I mean there was other. You know, there were. You know, there's a bottle of champagne. There's breakfast cereal in there that aren't brands, but there was an attempt to make those product placement as well. I think it got so far on that there was an expectation from artists of what the video was going to be, and there was then the budget that was first set by label, and then there was the actual budget of what it was really going to cost, and then that difference needed to be made up.
So do you think they went out looking for that sponsorship after they realised that they could?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did start looking for it, and labels like that was Capital. They have a team dedicated to integrating brands with their things they do, and same with the Weinstein Company. They have the Weinstein Company actually I think started Project Runway, and the producer there that started that, like her role is making, you know, getting brands and content makers together.
What was the budget?
Honestly, I don't know, because I have a production company in the States that deal with that.
Very quickly, last question,
Good,
sorry.
good. Okay, I better make it good then. All right, the question here is the audience themselves, how have they changed? Not how do we get messages to them, how have they changed? They're watching stuff on platforms. What do they want? What do they want? What are they looking for? You know, not how do we reach them, how do we talk to them? What are they looking for on a laptop or how is that audience changed from the panel?
I mean, that'd be an interesting one with Maria. I mean, Spot is, well, as I want to frame that.
Sorry, did we have time for that last question?
Spot is largely becoming a preferred model of
Yes.
content consumption. Is there a specific content that works better in that model than other content? Is there content which will not work?
No, I mean, there's a time and a place for everything. What we do see though is certain things that do really well on linear channels, sort of especially that post in a crash, this one set in the sofa and not think. That kind of programming does really well on linear, which may not, I'm not saying that it's not going to perform at all on SVOD, but it's a different way of viewing, because it's much more engaged, sort of, I want to watch this right now, and versus the sort of 7 and a 30 time slots on TV might generally be a bit more lean back. Audience wants to be entertained and or informed, but sometimes you want to be entertained by not having to think about anything at all, and sometimes you want to be challenged. And that hasn't changed. I mean, obviously what we see here is audience don't want to wait for things, because if they have to wait for something here and it's out in the States or in the UK, they'll find it. So you have to be really quick. But also, you know, just respect your audience. And it's quite easy, and I find this quite often as well, sort of when marketing to people, and you put on your company hat, and you go, no, we must reach this many people, and we're going to therefore buy 5,000 pens to give out. And then as a person, I don't want to get a pen. Like, I got pens. I want to get something that it's just sort of how do you do it and how do you watch it.
You threw away that line in there, but just respect your audience. It's very refreshing to hear. And I mean, I suppose I would add to that and say we're in that space of change. No broadcaster or content provider would dare try to tell you what the industry is going to look like 3 years from now, let alone 5 years. So I mean, there's all sorts of experimentation going on. The key fundamentals of storytelling are proving strong regardless of format and style of consumption and platform. And I mean, there's still the pillars, you know, which have to be associated with it. Formats change, time frames change, quality expectations change, what people will, the production qualities of what someone will take on around a comedy. You know, look at the first series of Curb Your Enthusiasm, shot on DV cams, versus what they'll take in drama. Very different. And so,
Just, I mean, and can I just say that it's not that I don't like the shows that got out at 7:30. It's just it's a time and a place. So, you know, depending on the scenario, and we, you know, for us, a lot of kids shows might have slightly lower depth because then they watch it on sort of smaller screens, whereas when you come home and you want to watch an amazing drama and you want it to be crystal clear.
thank you very much.